It's always good to have Mike Kuiken, close friend of SCSP, long-time national security practitioner, decision maker, policy maker, you name it, but I value Mike's judgment and thinking on all issues related to national security. So Mike, what did you see so far? Did you sit in any of the conversations? What did you like?
I've seen a lot of people so far, which
good.
is great. I was here the first year and last year, and every year this gets bigger, so it's great to see the work that you and the team have been doing. Congratulations, this is obviously your Super Bowl.
Thank you, Mike. A lot going on, Mike. We can talk about a lot of things, but you served as a national security advisor to Senator Schumer. You were behind some of the critical legislations we passed as a country to really stay in the competition, on the tech competition against China. If you were back in your old job right now, there's a lot of noise. What are some of the priorities you think in terms of legislation you would like to see it pass through?
I mean, we're always looking for a chance to work on bipartisan things.
Right.
Chips
Which
and
you have been always successful in leading that spirit of bipartisanship in these issues.
Yeah, so it's always trying to figure out where the opportunities are, where you can sort of draw the circle around both parties and how we can work together. I think the national security space is always one of those areas where you can find common ground. And so I think the defense industrial base is something that energizes people these days, not just sort of the older industrial base infrastructure, but also the new defense tech space. I think scaling up industry is something that's going to be a big focus. I know everyone's talking about that right now. I think those are probably the big opportunities. I think areas like IRA and chips and science remain good pieces of legislation, but I know they're politically unpopular right now. But I think the intent behind all of them was competition with China. And that's the conversation of the day.
Yeah. So you've talked about the need for an innovation flywheel in the United States. So based on what you've seen so far at the AI Plus Expo, is there something that jumped out at you and said, okay, we're actually building this, we're actually building the industrial capacity to outcompete Beijing?
Well, I haven't been hit in the head by a drone yet, but I know we're doing a lot of work.
Luckily, there's a net around them.
Thank God. So obviously, I think that's an area where we're doing a lot of work scaling up. As I've been thinking about drones, one of the things that that we have to sort of start thinking about is how do we drive down the price of everything that goes into those things. I visited a drone factory in India, believe it or not, recently, and it was incredible to see these things were being handmade, but they had basically squeezed every penny out of these things possible to make them as cheap as possible. And that's something that, as you look back at over the counterterrorism fight that we were in after 9/11, one of the things that I remember being told at the very beginning was that the Predator drone was an attritable drone. Over the course of the war, it became an exquisite drone. And so we have to sort of always moderate our appetite for the exquisite in the drone space, and I think that's something that's going to be a real sort of push-pull that we see play out in the industry over the next couple of years.
I know, Mike, bio is near and dear to your heart. Where do we stand on that technology today? What are some of the things? I know you go around the country, you push, you advocate because you think this is important. So where do you think we are right now in that space?
I mean, bio is one of these spaces that you're totally right, Lily. Absolutely gets me sort of up in the morning. And one of the things that I think we're seeing is that the Chinese, first of all, are doing an incredible job. The Made in China 2025 plan, Chinese made incredible investments in this space. Their intent and focus was the pharmaceutical industry, but the consequence, whether it was either by design or by accident, has been that they've built this incredible infrastructure layer for the bioeconomy. And it's something that we need to keep a very close eye on. If you guys remember, I think Illy's old enough, Martin, I'm not sure about you, we had 3 sciences in high school, physics, chemistry, and biology. 2 of them have been unlocked as general purpose technologies by the Western and democratic world, physics and chemistry. The one that is not is biology. And because of Made in China 2025, the Chinese are on a pathway to unlock biotech as a general purpose technology. What does that mean? It means they write the rules, it means they write the standards, it means they set the weights, and they really will end up coding essentially in biotech, and that's something that we need to keep a close eye on. The Commission and Hoover have been working hard on just increasing literacy in the biotech space. Too many people in Washington, when they hear biotech, automatically think pharma, and the bioeconomy is much more than that. Think biomaterials, think bioindustrials, think bioagriculture. I mean, the opportunity from a tech standpoint is absolutely incredible.
You've warned that the undersea domain is a triple threat, right? It's economic, military, strategic. Are we paying enough attention to that domain?
I think the simple answer is no. The reason from a commission perspective, one of the reasons we've been focused on it is the war in Taiwan is for Taiwan, if it ever plays out in 2027 or beyond, is going to be initiated in the cyberspace, in space, and in the undersea domain. Those will likely be the first areas of conflict. And so as we think about drones that are flying over us, airborne drones, one of the things we also have to remember about is there is an incredible opportunity drones in the undersea domain. We're also seeing an incredible growth in mining in the undersea domain, and how the rules get written there, where the acquisition of rights happens, is going to be a big sort of stage of conflict and competition. So that's something we've been trying to shine a light on. It's something where we'll definitely have some recommendations from a China Commission perspective later this year, and we're working hard on.
Can I just say one thing? I mean, what you have done with the China Commission, you and Randy, is really remarkable. I mean, you have jump-started the whole conversation on this issue with your hearings, with your travels around the country. I mean, really incredible job, Mike, there. You know, I don't praise you easily, but like what you have done with the commission is really remarkable. So well done.
It's a great commission. One of the staff directors or executive directors told me that our secret sauce was bipartisanship.
Right.
And you know, coming from the leader's office, where you're often put in a very partisan position, it's a lot of fun to sort of you know, get married to your work wife on the Republican side and do all this work. And Randy's been an absolutely fantastic partner. Leland Miller, Josh Hodges, my former colleague in Speaker Johnson's office. All these folks have been great partners, and it's a lot of fun. And that's, you know, not even to say how much I enjoy working with my Democratic colleagues as well. But it's a great commission and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Quickly, I know you cover AI a lot. You track AI. You work on AI. Where do you think we are right now, Mike? What are some of the things you're seeing happening in the next couple of weeks, months? Because this is moving so fast, as you know.
I mean, I think we're in a knife fight. I think that, you know, I think the frontier labs in the United States are doing incredible work. I think we are ahead of the Chinese. I think that one of the consequences of our export controls and some of the efforts of the executive branch to sort of constrain China's innovation flywheel, just to use Martin's term, have been effective. The consequence, though, and you see this play out in conflict and warfare all the time, is there's a measure-countermeasure cycle, right? And so we're seeing that happen in the AI space. That's why DeepSeek did distillation. They were being constrained on compute, and they said they had to find another way to advance their technology, and they did that. There will be another measure-countermeasure cycle that I think we're going to see play out as the United States starts putting pressure on the distillation issue. And so I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's something to keep a close eye on and make sure that our intelligence community is sort of focused on what are the Chinese doing next in that innovation space and how are we thinking about it.
A lot of emphasis on the leading edge of AI, semiconductors, but you know, a lot of our economy and essential services depend on, you know, more commodity style chips, or foundational chips, whatever you want to call it. I mean, do we need a CHIPS Act 2.0 to address that part of the equation? Are we doing enough on that front?
I mean, I don't know if we need a CHIPS Act 2.0, but one of the things that I think we often forget about is the light shining in our face, the microphone that's in my eye, the cord that I keep tripping my arm up on. You know, all these things have foundational or mature node chips. I think the people often forget that even the light switch on the wall has a chip in it. When it boils down to it, a chip is a switch. And they just become more exquisite as you work your way up or down the nanometer scale. And so shining a light on that is very important. The other thing I think that we need to do is realize where we're doing this in America. Where are those supply chains? As you sort of mentioned, Martin, the more these things become commodities, the less people care about where they come from. And so making sure that we have the data across our supply chain to understand where these things come from is really important. UMC is a Taiwanese company. They do incredible work. And our dependency there is significant. Where else are we doing? Texas Instruments is building out in Texas, obviously because that's where they're from, but there are other areas where we need to do this. So I think making sure we have supply chain insight to decide whether or not a CHIPS 2.0 is necessary is the first step, and then we can sort of continue the conversation from there.
Mike, we're almost done, but one question is, you spoke at our Taiwan event yesterday. You travel to Taiwan regularly. 27 is around the corner. How would you summarize where are we? Where is Taiwan right now? China?
I mean, the riff that I have really is there was this book written a number of years ago by named Russell Shorto. It was called The Island at the Center of the World. It's about the Dutch colonists.
Phenomenal book.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. You'll be amused to know that when I met Senator Schumer, he said, "Oh, is your last name Dutch?" And I said, "Yes." And then he gave me this riff about the island at the center of the world.
I forgot you guys have both.
Yeah, we're both Dutch.
Yeah.
If you ain't Dutch, you ain't much, Illy. So the island at the center of the world, right? This is about Manhattan.
Right.
If you now fast forward to where we are today and you think about the entire technology ecosystem and what's the fuel behind it, right? chips are really that fuel. Where are the chips made that are in my iPhone? Where are the chips made that had my conversation with Claude this morning that are enabling that? And where are the chips made for these microphones? Taiwan is almost totally likely to be with the source of these things. And so Taiwan is the island at the center of the world. August 1st, 2027, Illy, not far away.
Yeah.
And so we need to think about scaling up and scaling up fast.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for dropping by. Please enjoy the rest of the expo.
Will, thank you.
Always good to talk to you, Mike.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Good seeing you, Martin.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Very efficient.